I am sitting in a small room filled with darkness. Only a weak light from the street seeps through the blinds. The clock on the wall is ticking, breaking the silence. Suddenly a call. Unknown number on the phone screen. I answer, silence at the other end. Only quiet breathing, almost imperceptible. Something about that silence makes my heart beat faster. Who is it? I ask. There is no answer. Only breathing, cold and anxious. I hang up. But a minute later the phone rings again. The same number. I take a breath and press reply, but this time I am silent, waiting. Breathing becomes louder, heavier. It would seem that the person on the other end of the line knows that I am listening too. I hear someone whisper, "I know you're home alone." My heart starts pounding harder and the cold seeps into my bones. I put the phone down, try to calm down. Maybe it's just some kind of joke. But when I look at the screen again, the phone shows that the number is unknown. It was impossible. I had just seen the numbers. The call is repeated again. The same words. The same voice. And then I hear rustling outside the door of my apartment. I turn on the light in the corridor, but I can't see anything. Fear stirred in my stomach. I hear footsteps approaching. They can barely hear someone treading quietly and carefully on the parquet floor. The noise is getting louder, getting closer to me. I stand still, my palms are sweating, and I don't know what to do next. Suddenly the door opens slightly and a shadow appears in the darkness. I step back, feeling the sweat running down my back. It becomes quiet in the corridor. It's too quiet. I stay in my room trying to collect my thoughts. What's going on? Maybe this is someone's joke? But everything looks too real, too creepy. I approach the door and look into the corridor. There is no one there. Maybe I'm just making this up, my imagination playing tricks? But the calls, they were real. I hear the noise again. This time from the kitchen. The creak of a cupboard door, then the sound of someone dropping a spoon on the floor. I take a breath and go to the kitchen. I freeze at the threshold. One of the closet doors is really open. I'm sure I closed it an hour ago. Suddenly, I notice a glass of water on the table, which I definitely did not put there. The water is agitated, as if someone had just planted it. I come closer and notice that the glass begins to slide on the table, as if an invisible hand is pushing it. My breath hitches and I take a step back. Something is wrong here. Very wrong. The phone rings again. This time the voice on the other end is slightly changed, as if he is saying through a smile, "You have nowhere to run." My pulse quickens. The feeling that I am trapped is getting stronger. I look at the front door. The lock closes and the handle begins to move, as if someone is trying to open the door from the outside. Now I know one thing, it's not just a game. Someone is playing with me and they are here, nearby. I lock the door and step back, trying to remember if I have anything that can be used as a weapon. The walls around me seem closer and the light flickers faintly. I hear footsteps outside the door, voices. No, they are not voices, but like whispers coming from all directions. I hold the phone in my hand. I try to dial the emergency service, but there is no connection. The phone is not working. Panic is growing. I'm trying to gather my thoughts, but it's hard. The voices grow louder, as if they are getting closer. My heart beats like never before and I feel the cold seeping under my skin. Suddenly the light goes out. I remain in total darkness. Now I hear not only footsteps, but also strange breathing somewhere behind. I slowly turn my head, but I can't see anything. I feel someone's gaze on me, heavy, invisible, but tangible. Faced with fear and darkness, I realize that this is only the beginning. The story is just beginning, and it seems that I have no control over anything. I stand in complete darkness, breathing becomes difficult. My hand shakes, clutching the phone, which now seems completely useless. The footsteps die down, but the silence that remains after them becomes even more terrifying. Something in this darkness, a feeling as if someone is looking at me, as if the gaze penetrates into the very depths of my soul. I try to fight this fear. I tell myself that it's just my thoughts, but my heart is pounding like it's ready to jump out of my chest. Here I hear a weak knock on the window. I turn sharply, pointing my phone there like a flashlight, but I only see the reflection of myself in the glass. Another knock. And one more. Louder and more persistent each time. The feeling that someone is outside the window becomes almost unbearable. I come closer, listening, trying to see at least something through the dark glass. And here, right in front of me, fingerprints appear on the glass, cold, wet traces, as if someone had just touched it from the other side. The heart stops for a moment. I stand, afraid to even move, and 1,000 thoughts run through my head. What could it be? Who is this? How did he get there? Suddenly another bell rings. From the same unknown line. This time I put the phone to my ear with more determination, expecting to hear a voice, but again it's only a whisper. "You're looking out the window, aren't you?" The voice whispered again, a little louder this time. I move away from the window as if scalded. They know. They know everything I do. Breathing becomes loud and intermittent. I step back, go back to the door and lock it with all the locks there are. But this whisper keeps sounding in my head. I feel that my hands are shaking from fear. "You need to leave the apartment. Run away from here as far as possible." I go back to the door and hear that strange sound outside the window again. A creak, as if someone were slowly moving a finger along the glass. After walking down the hall, I try to turn the light back on, but the switch doesn't work. The electricity went out. The darkness became even thicker. I remember the candles I keep in my locker. I rush there, take out one and light it. The flickering flame of the candle captures every detail of the room, but the fear only grows stronger. The light seems too weak to protect me from this phantom threat. In the darkness I hear a soft whisper, as if it comes from the walls, surrounds me from all sides. Suddenly, some movement is heard again in the kitchen, as if someone is walking quietly and carefully on the tiles. I freeze listening. The whispering grows louder, as if it seeps through the walls. I feel that this horror is just beginning. The light from the candle casts ghostly shadows on the walls, which move and dance as if they were alive. I turn around, trying to see what is happening, but I realize that everything around me is somehow different, alien. I feel my every step as if through a thick fog of fear. The steps in the kitchen are becoming clearer. These are no longer just creaks, but real steps that are approaching. I slowly walk towards the kitchen, trying to make my steps as quiet as possible. The candle flickers in my hand, but then I notice that the door to the kitchen is ajar. Although I definitely remember that I closed them. I come closer and look into the kitchen. At first I can't see anything, only darkness. But then, I notice the outline of a person. Someone is standing in the middle of the kitchen, silent and motionless. His figure almost blends into the shadows, but I can see her breathing. I can't make out his face, but I can see his eyes glinting in the dark, looking straight at me. My heart stops again for a moment and then starts pounding frantically. I stand motionless, unable to take a single step. And then he starts slowly moving towards me. I see him reach for me and something sharp flashed in his hand. I feel my legs shaking and I realize that I am trapped. I quickly close the kitchen door and turn the key, but I know it's only a temporary setback. I hear him start banging on the door, softly at first, then harder, so hard that it starts shaking. I understand that there is little time left before he breaks inside. I run to the hallway trying to grab anything that could be a weapon, only to find that there is nothing nearby to protect me. The thoughts in his head are confused, and his heart beats so loudly that it seems he can hear every beat. I grab the nearest kitchen knife, thin and not long enough but better than nothing. A loud sound, the door gives in under blows. I quickly run to the bedroom where there is only one window but it leads to the street. I understand that the only way out is through him. I stand on a chair, try to open the window but it gets stuck. Panic washes over me but I force myself to focus, putting in even more effort. Finally, it gives way with a slight crack and I start to climb out onto the windowsill, looking down. It seems that this is an insane height. But then I hear the kitchen door slam open and loud footsteps head towards the bedroom. There is no time to think. I jump out the window, fall to the ground, feeling the impact of the cold grass send pain through my entire body. But I'm alive. I stand up, trying to understand where I am. The night is so dark that I can barely see my own hands. I decide to run as far as possible, without direction, without a clear goal, just away from this horror. I hear the window open behind me and heavy footsteps sound nearby. He also jumped out. And he knows where I ran. I frantically run forward, trying to be as quiet as possible, but the dry leaves under my feet betray my every step. My heart is pounding desperately in my chest and I keep looking back. The darkness seems to cover me from all sides, oppresses and scares me. I feel as if I am wandering in a labyrinth from which there is no way out. But suddenly, ahead I see a faint light. This may be a chance for salvation. I break into a path that leads to a small house. The light from the porch lantern flickers, but I rush toward it, hoping there's someone inside who can help. I knock on the door but no one answers. I hear heavy steps from behind and fear rolls in with new force. Finally, the door opens. Behind them is an elderly woman who looks at me in fright. I try to explain to her that someone is chasing me, but she just nods, quickly closes the door and secures it with several locks. I breathe heavily, trying to figure out what to do next. The woman whispers something, looks scared as if she knows who or what is chasing me. She points me to the back door that leads to the basement. I hesitate but realize that this might be the only place to hide. I feel fear rolling in with new force, but I have to go on. The basement stairs creak under my feet. Darkness envelopes me again like a blanket. I can barely see anything, but I hear footsteps upstairs. I hear him getting closer. The basement is bigger than I expected. It goes far in and I feel a cold, raw breeze running across the floor. I try to hide behind the shelves, hoping he won't find me here. But in this darkness, every sound seems 10 times louder. My breath is rumbling like thunder and my heart is pounding like it's about to burst out of my chest. Suddenly, I hear the basement door open. A hand reaches up and the light of the flashlight dazzles my eyes. I freeze, trying not to breathe. The flashlight moves, searching for me, and each movement is another drop of sweat on my forehead. I hold my breath, trying to stop my heart pounding in my chest. The beam of the lantern slides along the walls of the basement, illuminating the shelves, boxes, walls, but not me yet. I can see his silhouette upstairs by the door, see him moving slowly down the stairs, taking his time. He probably knows that I am here and that I have nowhere to run. The light of the lantern pierces the darkness and I feel a cold sweat run down my neck. Breathing is becoming more and more difficult, as if the air in the basement is becoming heavier and heavier, full of fear and tension. I try to stay in the shadows, I try not to move, not to give myself away. But he is getting closer. The steps become louder, heavier. I can hear his breathing, so even and calm, as if he is simply enjoying this deadly game. I crouch even lower, trying to blend in with the shelves, hiding behind the boxes. The light of the lantern suddenly stops right in front of me, and I feel its beam touch my face. He mumbles something, but I don't understand the words. I hear him getting closer, feel his presence grow more and more menacing. Everything inside me screams, "Run." But I know that if I take even one step, he will notice me. And suddenly I see his flashlight stop on the ground at my feet. He leans down, his hand reaching for me, and then I do the only thing I can do. I grab the best thing I can find, an old metal pipe, and strike with my whole body, with all the force of desperation. The trumpet hits his hand and he screams, the light of the lantern falls to the ground, a spot of light begins to jump chaotically on the floor, like a lantern on a stormy sea. He takes a step back, losing his balance, but does not fall. I understand that this is my only chance. I run out from behind the rack and aim my next punch at his chest. He backs away again, but this time falls on his back. He starts yelling something that I can't make out over my own pulse in my ears. I see that he is trying to get something from his belt. Maybe a knife or other weapon. Without thinking, I lunge at him with all my might and hit his hand with the pipe again, knocking the object out of his fingers. He tries to get up, but I hit him again, even harder, without mercy. He finally quiets down and I freeze for a few seconds, breathing heavily, trying to figure out if it's over. In the dim light of the lantern, I can see his face. It is covered in blood, his eyes are open, but he is no longer moving. I don't know if he's dead or just unconscious, but I don't want to stay here to check. I get up, take the flashlight, and looking around the basement again, look for another way out. In the corner I see an old, dilapidated wooden door. Maybe it's a way out. Without wasting a second, I run up to them and, pushing with my whole body, manage to open them. Behind the door is a narrow passage leading somewhere deeper into the unknown. But I have no choice. I step forward, flashlight in hand. The passage seems endless and every step echoes in the darkness. I can feel the fear slowly creeping up on me again. And then I hear footsteps behind me. He rose again. The steps are getting closer and closer. I can't see him, but I know he's already following me. The flashlight begins to flicker, and the passages seem increasingly narrow. The tunnel is getting darker and darker, the air is getting thicker and heavier, and footsteps are getting closer. I pick up my pace, trying not to think about the pain in my legs, what might happen if he catches up to me. Every step is taken with effort, everything in my chest is tight from tension, but I keep going forward. I see how the tunnel widens a little and a crossroads appears ahead. Left or right? I grab the flashlight, pointing it in both directions. To the left, a soft hum can be heard as if from a fan. To the right is dead silence, but it seems even more terrifying. I don't have time to think. I take a left, hoping the hum leads to an exit. I have walked a few meters when the flashlight loses its charge and goes out. Now the darkness becomes absolute. Panic washes over me, but I force myself not to stop. I try to walk in the direction of the hum, focusing on the sound. Suddenly I hear him approaching. His heavy steps reverberate behind me. He did not stop. Didn't give up. He is here, close again. I grit my teeth and go further to the touch, feeling the cold, wet walls of the tunnel with my hands. Suddenly I run into an obstacle. It's a door. wooden with thick iron bolts. I understand that they lead somewhere up. Maybe this is the way out. But the door is locked. I start looking for a key or something to open the lock when I hear heavy breathing behind me. He is already very close, almost behind my back. Without stopping, I start hitting the lock with something heavy that I found on the floor. The castle does not give in and his steps are very close. I feel his hand reach for me. One more blow and the lock finally breaks. I open the door and rush inside. I close the door behind me and immediately see that it is a small room, surrounded on all sides by iron walls. There is nothing inside except an old telephone on the floor. The phone is like a relic of the last century. I run up to him, grab the phone and try to dial a number. As I try to call for help, I hear the door close. Then I understand, it's a trap. I turn around but it's too late. I can see him through the small window in the door. His face is twisted in a satisfied smile. He does not enter the room. He just stands and looks at me knowing I'm trapped. Suddenly the light in the room goes out and the only sound I hear is the soft click of the lock on the other side of the door. I catch my last breath of air and everything sinks into darkness. The phone no longer works. The darkness around me is so deep that I can't see anything, not even my own hands in front of me. The fear becomes unbearable when I realize that he is not going to kill me right now. He wants me to understand. He wants me to feel every minute of this fear, every second of this hopelessness. Now I know he is playing. And this game is just beginning.